Live from the Business Radio X studio inside Renaissance Bank, the bank that specializes in understanding you. It's time for North Fulton Business Radio.
And hello again, everyone. Welcome to another edition of North Fulton Business Radio. I'm John Ray, and we are coming to you from the Business Radio X studio inside Renaissance Bank. Folks, today you're connected more than ever. Whether it's your friends, your family, or your life, Renaissance understands how you bank, offering the mobile banking services you need. Renaissance also knows that sometimes you need to speak to real people with real answers. That's why Renaissance has more than 170 convenient locations throughout the South ready to serve you. For more information, go to renaissancebank.com. Renaissance Bank, understanding you. Member FDIC. And I want to move to an old friend, a great guy, serves his clients extraordinarily well, Gregg Burkhalter, the LinkedIn guy.
Hello, John Ray.
Personal branding coach.
Great to be here. Thank you. So, by the way, your studio is amazing.
You like it?
I think you took it up a notch or two, man.
Well, thank you. Well, you were here, I guess, maybe a year or so ago, and you were at our old place, and we've moved on up.
I will agree. This is a great facility. Renaissance seems like a prime location to do this kind of thing. So congratulations.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate that. So for those that don't know you, and those are an increasingly smaller number of people that don't know Gregg Burkhalter, but for those that don't know you, tell them a little bit about who you are and what you do.
Well, Gregg Burkhalter is a personal branding coach who happens to be known as the LinkedIn guy. And what I do is I help professionals define their personal brand and work with them on a strategy to build that brand. There's a couple of ways you do that. You do it in person and you do it online. And of course, my tool of choice for doing it online is LinkedIn. And originally I started out doing more one-on-one training sessions. That was sort of my business model. I did very well at it and got to really work with some elite clients. I continue to work with some elite clients on personal consulting. But I recognized early on that if I want to have the biggest impact on the most number of people, I've got to do some corporate stuff. So I've got to expose myself to more group presentations. And that's sort of my focus changed in the last year or so, where I'm doing more corporate and group presentations. And I'm enjoying that. And the reception has been very overwhelming, because what's so cool is the company marketing landscape has dramatically changed in the last year. Most are aware, some are not. The way you market to your customer and the way you attract new clients has totally changed. And we'll probably get into that conversation later on. But that fact has allowed me to talk to more companies.
Yeah, I do want to get into that, because you really kind of eat your own cooking, shall we say, because your branding has changed over time. And you started out really focused on LinkedIn, the platform, and you are now really talking about how LinkedIn is a tactic in a bigger strategy, which is how do you brand yourself personally and professionally?
Correct. I believe when you define your personal brand, you don't define a brand that's going to be your brand from now until you quit, doing what you're doing. You got to always be constantly making yourself aware. Is my brand value the same as it was a year ago? And if it's not, what components have increased in value? And I recognize that my personal branding skill set was increasingly my value as a LinkedIn guy. So recognizing that fact, after a couple of friends brought it to my attention, I decided to put a little bit more emphasis on the personal branding. Once I did that, the timing could not have been better. The business environment started to recognize the value of personal branding. I had people ready to hear my message about personal branding, and that exposure continues to grow. So the timing was good, and I'm on the path now to spread the word about your personal brand is your gateway to career success. And building relationships is part of building that personal brand.
There are a lot of perceptions, Gregg, about what a personal brand is. Why don't you give your definition? What is a personal brand?
My definition is your personal brand is what people think, feel, or say when they hear your name or they see your face or name. The short version for that real wordy explanation is this. Your brand's not what you say you are. It's what other people say you are. And believe it or not, whether you know it, you have a personal brand. You may not be aware of what it is, but you really need to know. And a good way to start that query into figuring out what is your personal brand, Google your name. That's what everybody in the world does when they hear of you or meet you. In fact, when you go on a job interview or you're going to have a meeting with somebody, don't be worried about that first impression when you walk in the room. That's your second impression. They already have the first impression. They've Googled your name. They've checked out your LinkedIn profile. They're looking to see if the person they found online is the same person that walks through that door.
If it all matches up.
That's right. Hopefully you've got them so jazzed up by your online presence that when you come in person, you just nail it.
Gotcha. So you've got a personal brand, whether you know it or not, so you better tend to it. Now, there are a lot of different aspects to this, whether you're a job seeker, whether you're an entrepreneur, professional services provider, whether you're an employee in corporate. Maybe talk a little bit about those different aspects of someone carrying a personal brand.
Well, let's just say you're a job seeker out there. Your personal brand can make the difference between you getting a job and not getting the job. If you're competing against someone else with similar education, similar skill set, if you have a strong personal brand, you're going to get that gig. In fact, I don't know if you've recognized this, but the professional toolbox is totally different than it was, say, 5 years ago. In fact, when I came along, my professional toolbox was a real skinny, flat toolbox. It had two things in it, my education and my experience. Now the toolbox of the professional man and woman is huge. It has two new power tools that will change your life and your career. Those two new power tools are a strong personal brand and an engaged professional network. Those last two will change your life. Now, when you're working for a company, talking about personal branding, when you're working there, you got to build up your credibility in the company. You do that by being more active, being a fixture and a storefront for the company to help spread the brand, become a thought leader for your company. Those kind of things build your personal brand inside of the company, which increases your value and also attracts more people to your company. So personal branding for company exposure is very important. Let's talk about career-wise. I talk with a lot of C-level executives. They have a challenge with personal branding because as latter career C-level executives, that term is totally new to them. They've been underneath that corporate veil for 20 or 30 years,
right, and
they're about to leave it. That is extremely scary. So when I talk to a lot of C-level people, I start out as a cheerleader, remotivator, reimager, brander. I go through the whole process of pointing them in the right direction. And this past week, I had a situation arise that actually created a brand new talking point for me I've never said before. I'm going to give it to you right now.
Okay. Lay it on me.
If you are a C-level executive and you're about to retire, you have to make the decision at least 6 months before you retire. Is there any possibility you might change your mind and come back in the workforce? Because if you think you might change your mind, you better maintain your digital presence while you're thinking it out. If you leave the workforce and get silent and dormant for 6 months or so and try to come back, it is a tough task. So again, if you're C-level out there and you're about to retire, do some soul searching. Do you want to continue to work? Is there a possibility? If there is, continue to be present in the professional world because it's harder to stay present and energize that presence than to totally go away and try to reintroduce yourself to people who have forgotten about you.
Sure. We're speaking with Gregg Burkhalter. He's the LinkedIn guy, GreggBurkhalter.com. Now, Gregg, let's come back around and dive into LinkedIn for a second because you are the LinkedIn guy. LinkedIn has changed dramatically over the last couple of years. I mean, we could point to the Microsoft acquisition and all the investments that Microsoft has made in the platform. How has that changed for the better for using LinkedIn as a personal branding tool?
Well, I tell you, Microsoft's purchase, I was a little concerned when I first heard about it, but here we are 3 years later, roughly. I'm extremely impressed. I can tell that Microsoft has put a lot more resources into LinkedIn. I can tell they're really focused on making the platform easy to use, making it where people are engaged and want to use the platform, and creating tools and resources not only to build digital relationships, but also take digital relationships and maintain those in the real world. It's going both ways now with certain things that LinkedIn has in their app program. So I'm really impressed with that. There's always new features coming out every single day to help you do things on LinkedIn to grow your brand. One of the latest ones is video. As you well know, in anything nowadays, video is a prime component in brand exposure and also getting your message out there. So LinkedIn now has video. LinkedIn is also rolling out limited basis so far, LinkedIn Live, which is a streaming service. most people aren't even aware that LinkedIn inside of the cell phone mobile app, you can do voice messaging and video messaging easy from your device. Also, talking about building those real world relationships from digital relationships. When you're out there in the field, you can take out your LinkedIn mobile app and you can share locations with somebody you're going to be meeting with, and also check your calendar from inside of LinkedIn and make an appointment to meet somebody using the LinkedIn app. Some really cool stuff like that. Also, if you're at a gathering like a networking event, you can bring out your LinkedIn mobile app and push a button, and you can see all the people within like 100 feet of you in that room. A great way to build connections with people you don't know. So LinkedIn is focused on connections, expanding the network. 630 million people on LinkedIn right now, so they are growing rapidly. That $26.2 billion purchase by Microsoft has proven to be a winner for them.
Sure, absolutely. Now, let's get back to that C-level executive. So, or that corporate employee. So you've listed all these different additional enhancements that LinkedIn has laid out there for us to use. And I can see somebody out there right now saying, Greg, I don't have enough time as it is right now. How am I going to distinguish between all these different aspects of LinkedIn I should use, not use? What should I pay attention to? What should my focus be?
Your focus should be on having a strategy, because just being on LinkedIn is not the strategy. It's what am I going to do? When am I going to do it? How am I going to do it? As a corporation or a company right now, I can tell you your number one focused on trying to grow your brand is building the personal brands of your employees, because your employees are the gateway to brand exposure for your company. As I alluded to earlier in our conversation, one of the main changes in the business environment now is your customer and your future employee don't believe that company message like they used to. They're a little skeptical about that because you're marketing to them. What do they believe? They believe the personal brand and the messages of your employees. So empower your employees to be ambassadors for your company, because they are the one that actually create the relational connection with your customer. People do business with people. They are the person they get attracted to. So empower your employees. Not only does it help your brand grow for your company, it's a good professional development item for your employees. It makes them know that you care about them, tends to make them stay around longer, and they also turn into people who are thought leaders for your company and can really help generate some real goodwill for your company. So you cannot walk away from branding your employees. The old saying is, why do I want to brand my employees? Somebody might hire them away. What if you don't brand them? That is the worst scenario right now. In fact, I brought a quote in with me. I was hoping I'd have an opportunity to do this because I read an article yesterday on LinkedIn by Mark Schaefer. In fact, I shared it on my profile. And this quote was just eye-opening. And I wanted to make sure I got it right. He said, if you're still on the fence about personal branding and its cumulative impact in the business world, you're on a probable path of obsolescence. That pretty well sums it up right there.
It does. It does. But I got to push back here a little bit. So if I'm in a big company, I've got a manic chase for good people, because that's always a problem, keeping and retaining good people for any company. Why do I want to highlight them on LinkedIn? You talked a little bit about that, but dig into that a little deeper, because that scares me if I'm an employer.
All right. Well, let me give you a figure that might make you more charismatic to that idea. On average, the employees of a company have 10 times more followers than the company has followers. So
even the biggest corporations.
Correct.
Really?
Your biggest corporations have a lot of employees. You take the connections of all your employees and add those up, and take how many followers you have on the LinkedIn company page. You probably have 10 times more followers of your employee pages than you do company page. They provide the exposure. And there's something about a personal message and an emotional message that is better received than a pitch on the company page. In fact, when you connect with someone on LinkedIn as a general rule, you're not inviting them to pitch you on anything.
Sure.
You're inviting them to build a relationship,
right.
A relationship based on trust and the value you bring to them. Company page, when you follow a company page, you're saying, please sell me something and please pitch me. So coming back to that whole deal of how business is done nowadays, relationships are a big part of the business process. As you probably have noticed, especially in the B2B world, the sale does not go very fast. It takes a lot of nurturing along the way. You don't send somebody an offer and automatically it closes. There's a lot of relationships, a lot of conversations occur. So that emotional relationship of the nurturing of the deal is very important on you closing that deal. And chances are great if you didn't have a strong personal brand and you were not able to build a relationship with a future client, you're not going to get that sale anyway.
You know, it strikes me that, and I'm going to affirm where you're coming from on this. It strikes me that it's pretty short-sighted to think that LinkedIn is the only way for good people to be found. That recruiters, that their whole business is finding good people, and they were doing that long before LinkedIn came along, right? So, you know, it's a little counterintuitive to think that, well, just if we can just keep our employees off of LinkedIn, they won't be found.
Well, you keep your employees off LinkedIn and your customers will never see your brand at the level they need to see it. In fact, on LinkedIn, during my presentations when I talk about the fact that most people on LinkedIn are not looking for you. They discover you, especially your customers. Your customers are not looking for you. They discover you. And 90% of the time they discover you is not on your company page. It is on the personal page of one of your employees who has created engaging content that they've seen and say, you know what? This person's a thought leader. That's how they find you. Of course, there are some people hunting for you on LinkedIn. As you said, recruiters might be looking for you. And also people don't want to sell you stuff. But your customers and your future employees, as a general rule, they discover you. Sure. They discover the magic of your brand as conveyed by your employees.
We're speaking with Gregg Burkhalter, the LinkedIn guy and personal branding coach and expert. Now, Gregg, how do you work with a company that says, okay, I buy it. I want to work with you. Help me help my employees build our brands. That's plural, build our brands together.
Gotcha. Well, there's not one size fits all. The beginning of that process is a conversation at length about what their business is about, who their customers are, the challenges they're having on LinkedIn. And whenever I know I'm going to talk to somebody about a LinkedIn training session in the future, I never look at their LinkedIn profile before I speak to them. And I never look at their company page. I want to put myself in the position of their customer or future client. When I talk to them for the very first time, they tell me what they're about. I listen to what they say. And then when I go to their LinkedIn profile or company page, I know if there's a disconnect or what's going on there. Once I do that assessment, then I know what I can do. As a general rule, most companies now in the corporate world could really benefit greatly from my 1 hour, what I call the LinkedIn Power Hour. It has taken me several years to be able to get in 60 minutes of time a total overview of LinkedIn, what it's about, the psychology, what you do, how to build your personal brand, and give you a to-do list of what you do every day on LinkedIn. It's taken a while to get there, but I've got that down. So every company could benefit from that.
Sure.
There's an extended version of that which includes a 1 hour of hands-on LinkedIn training where we build the foundation of LinkedIn and then we go under the hood of LinkedIn and show you what everything does, including the buttons you've never seen before. And I give you an opportunity to watch me do my daily activity on LinkedIn, to hear my psychology, to see my psychology, to see my technique. So when you leave there, you're empowered with confidence to go out there and start using LinkedIn. Now, here's the thing that happens a lot of times when I train companies. I have to warn them. I'll go into a company, we'll talk about LinkedIn, and they get fired up. And the first thing they want to do is the next day go out on LinkedIn and blow it wide open with content. You can't do that.
Right. You can't turn the battleship in one day, right?
But you know what? It gets people thinking about me because when that happens, they say they must have heard Gregg Burkhalter speak. I get blamed for that all the time. So as a general rule, if you're not active on LinkedIn, you got to ease your way into it because LinkedIn is really not about you.
Right.
It's about the value you bring to the community. So if you get on LinkedIn from 0 to 100, what that feels like is you walking into a networking group, walking in the door and passing out your cards and flyers to everyone in the room and leaving the room and never saying the word. What they say is, who was that?
Right.
So you got to have a strategy on LinkedIn, and it's not 100 miles an hour out of the gate.
Now, let's back up to that point where you're checking out someone's profile and that kind of thing. That when you get to that point, is that where the term that I've seen on your profile page, brand storming, I'll get that right, brand storming, is that where that term comes in?
Brand storming comes shortly after that.
Okay.
I hear them talk about what they think their brand is about. I look at their profile, and then I give them what I feel as a first impression their brand is. And that is the beginning of the brand storming session. And we kind of talk back and forth. I want to know, in priority, what are the most important things in what you're trying to do? Tell me some of the things what are your branding items that you feel in your mind are the most important things? And I'll listen to them tell me those items. Well, they may either tell me those items in non-clear terms. I have to clarify in better terms what they're trying to say, or they don't have them in the right order based on what I read. So we try to figure out what is their personal brand? What is that? Then once we do that, we've got to decide how do we present that brand in a humble yet confident way to attract people to their brand so that over a period of time, people will become engaged with their brand, see them as a thought authority, and want to do business with them. The true magic of LinkedIn is your brand is really growing when the cold calls slow down and the inbound calls increase. It's a wonderful spot to be only receiving inbound calls and responding to inbound calls. That's when you know you have blown it wide open.
Now, I know there's some folks that say, well, hey, Greg, I've already got all those real connections. I've already got all those calls. I've got a large customer base. So why do I need to do all this work on LinkedIn?
I hope you keep those people. I hope they live to be 150 to 200 years old because you're not growing your base. Here's the reality. In today's world, I don't care how many real relationships you have. If you haven't digitized those relationships and put them on LinkedIn so people can see your name in their digital workday, you're not thought of. You're not top of mind. In fact, you're going to end up forgotten. So you've got to have your relationships. They're great to have them in person. You need them both places, in person, but digitize them so you can nurture them and watch those relationships grow. Because a relationship of somebody in the digital realm is a daily relationship. You know what's going on in their life every single day. There is no catching up to do when you meet that person. There's only a continuing to grow the relationship. So digitize them, put them on LinkedIn, help you out.
Yep, sure. So now I want to just take a little side, I've got a daughter in college, so I want to take a little sidebar here to talk about college students, because I know you've been doing some speaking at colleges, even high schools, and talking to them about how how undergraduates, MBA students, need to improve their personal brand or establish that personal brand even before they get out in the workplace.
Correct. You got to realize LinkedIn has been around since 2003, but among the current college graduates right now, it's not the channel of choice they've been using. They've been using Facebook and Instagram, and I have to make them aware of, first of all, the value of LinkedIn, the value of their personal brand, because going forward, your personal brand is going to be your key to success. I mean, if you don't have a personal brand building strategy, you're not going down the right path to start your career. In fact, if you're working right now, I venture to say in the next 5 years, 10 years, it might even be 20 years down the road. But if you're working right now, at some point in your career, your personal brand is going to be your only chance of making a living. You're going to be it's the only tool you got. And it's also going to allow you to work at the level you're accustomed to working. If you don't have that personal brand, you're going to be hurting in the business world. So build your brand, protect your brand. And after you build your brand and people believe your brand, one of the great benefits of that is you can share your brand. Help other people build their brand. It's a giving thing too. Once you get it, you give it. So personal branding is career-wise, personal branding is very important. Now, the fine line you have to walk is this. You have your personal brand and you work for a company. Working for a company, you're going to share their brand with them. You're going to share your personal brand. You're going to promote the company, but you cannot sell out your personal brand to your company. If you sell out your personal brand to where your brand is based exclusively on where you work, if you ever lose that job, your brand is going to take a hit. Make sure you maintain your own personal brand skills that are not directly tied to your company, that are transferable should the need be down the road. But you do want to have a strong brand because you are valuable to your employee. You are going to give brand exposure for your employee, but you also are looking out for yourself too. So maintain your own personal brand.
And again, back to the whole point about companies and how companies should react to this phenomena. They've got a line to walk, right? I mean, they really want to encourage that employee to not only help them build the company brand, but understand the benefits of building that personal brand, encouraging that employee to build their own brand.
When this company helping people build personal branding scenario started rolling out, initially companies tried to be too structured on that. They set forth a social media policy, and all of a sudden their employees became robots. People can recognize robots. You've got to let your employees have their own personality, their personal skill set. You got to make them real people. Let real people that work for your company share content, build relationships, and represent your company. You'll be successful. But if it feels plastic and generic and a unified effort to do something, it's not real. It's not going to work. So that's why you got to work with the employee to help them. Now, one thing you do want to do is make sure your employees, even though you give them some freedom to build their brand, there should be some recognition of exactly what is a strong brand and what is the proper way to represent themselves and your company. You've got to have some kind of strategy and focus on that. But a day by day, here's what the company wants you to do. You shouldn't be quite that regimented.
Sure.
Represent the company, build your brand, help the company.
Now, again, Gregg Burkhalter, GreggBurkhalter.com, personal branding coach and expert and LinkedIn guy. You're a great example of this yourself. I mean, you have gone from essentially a Metro Atlanta guy to the point where the other day I saw you were training on LinkedIn, of course, training a group of college students in Canada. Wow. I mean, you have extended your own brand out there and you're obviously eating your own cooking. So talk about that, maybe a little bit about that journey, but also how you handle those kind of clients that are out there remote like that. Do you travel to them? Do you do that remotely? How do you do that?
It's a great honor to have people from other countries and other states reach out to me because it gives me an opportunity to do what I'm trying to do, have as much impact as possible on the most number of people. So how do I train people? Well, originally it was train people in person, but now I spend probably more of my time training people via the internet. Doing one-on-one coaching via the internet. And in fact, I've done in the last 6 months, 3 keynote speaking presentations from my desktop at home to groups. It works flawlessly. And that's how I talk to a lot of the colleges out of town. I do a speaking presentation. They gather the students in an auditorium, project me on the screen. It works great. So technology is wonderful. It allows me the opportunity to get to other people and have a personal branding LinkedIn conversation with them and just expand my network. Because if you're on LinkedIn and you're staying in the small little pond, that's not growing your brand. You got to get into the LinkedIn ocean.
Sure.
I mean, most people on LinkedIn, what they're doing is they're kind of hunting. They're hunting for customers or they're hunting for somebody that might know one of their customers. All this little hunting is in a small pond or field. You got to get in the ocean. And the way you get in the ocean, you got to start fishing. Having a strong bait, which is a LinkedIn profile that's buttoned up, and a fishing pole, which happens to be the LinkedIn ecosystem, which you use with a strategy to expose your brand. If you're fishing, I don't care how the hunting's going, at some point, those fish are going to start jumping in your boat. And what I've noticed lately is I'm actually hunting for fish. I hunt for someone I want to put into my ocean so I can feed them until they bite. So that's what I'm doing right now. So a lot of these out-of-town engagements are people I have never spoken to who have heard of my name through my brand exposure.
Wow. So again, eating your own cooking, doing it exactly the way you counsel others to do it, which is exciting for folks to see. Now, in terms of some of your in-person events, you have a couple of different events that are interesting, I think, and Connected is one of them. Maybe you can talk a little bit about that one, and also LinkedIn After Hours. Give us a little lowdown on those events.
Well, the Connected event is something I came up with back in 2015. It was a concept of allowing my LinkedIn connections and my connections to get together and have some in-person networking. Worked out really good, so I'll continue to do that a couple of 3 times a year. I have one of those coming up on July 17th. I did one back in January. We had over 100 folks there. Hoping this one's going to be another big event too, so I would love you to come join us for that. And following that in a couple of months, I have another one of my signature events. It's more of a training type event. It is called LinkedIn After Hours. And the tagline I came up with was, "It's never too late to learn LinkedIn," which is really, it's kind of a play on words.
Yeah, rough course. Yeah.
But it gives an opportunity for people who are working, who want to come learn LinkedIn, work on their personal brand, and their boss not know. It's a 2-hour workshop. Very similar to like my 2-hour corporate training where you can come in and get the total meat of LinkedIn and leave with a strategy of what you should be doing every day on LinkedIn. Of course, when I do these public training workshops, the 2-hour one, the LinkedIn After Hours, or I go into a corporation, of course, I leave you with my materials behind that you can reference later on, because if anybody's ever heard the LinkedIn guy speak, what's the term you use? The faucet's going to be turned on, John. I've heard you
Sure.
say the faucet gets turned on. Okay.
Sure.
So I've never been known for holding back information. So when you come, we'll fill you up with some good stuff, and we'll give you some notes to take home with you.
Yeah, you deliver a lot of value at all your events, and so, but if you're listening to this show in the podcast form, maybe after the dates that Gregg gave, obviously go and follow Gregg on LinkedIn, and you'll announce those events in the future,
Correct.
As they come along. So, Gregg, I guess to kind of wrap it up here, if I'm either a company or an individual, I'm really interested in some of maybe a success story or two, folks that you have worked with recently that you've made a big impact on.
Well, it's a pleasure to be able to work with people and have impact on lives.
Sure.
A lot of times the people never really reach back out to you and tell you how it went, so sometimes you don't know. But a couple of recent stories. One is about 9 months ago, I had a CFO at a major oil company who had lost his job. Unfortunately, he had never really used his LinkedIn account, had no knowledge of LinkedIn, so I was able to work with him one-on-one to help update his LinkedIn profile, give him a strategy of job search and daily LinkedIn activity. And 4 months after I worked with him, he said, "Hey, I've got a new gig. I'm working for a private company. I'm a CFO." So that's wonderful. I have notes from people all the time that I'm humbled when they send them to me. They're telling me that your presentation that I attended, you don't know this, but it changed my trajectory. I get those all the time.
Wow.
Names I can't quote, but I get them all the time. And I'm so honored that they would take time to let me know that, because someone took time with me. When I was at a career juncture, prior to being the LinkedIn guy, I had an individual sit down with me and go, "Gregg, I want to try to help you get your strategy together for growing your brand and what you want to do." Had someone not done that for me, I would not be talking to you today. So
wow,
I enjoy helping others. People enjoy knowing that somebody cares about them, that they're vested and have them succeed, and they have no ulterior motives other than from to succeed. And that's why I enjoy helping people. I want them to succeed.
That's fantastic. Yeah, and I see that from you on LinkedIn. You get on there and you really promote others in a good way. I mean, in the good work that they are doing, and that resonates with us. That's what we try to do here at Business Radio X, and we're it's exciting to see that in terms of the way you play that out on LinkedIn. So congratulations on your success and the information you're sharing with folks and the lives you're changing. For those that want more information, would like to be in touch with you and connect with you, how do they do that?
Well, I would love for them to connect with me on LinkedIn.
Of course.
Yeah,
I imagine that, right?
Yeah. The direct link on that is linkedin.com/in/Gregg Burkhalter. Or you can visit my website is greggburkhalter.com. If you want to kind of check out what I've been doing lately, you can Google the LinkedIn guy. I'm so fortunate to show up #1 in search in the world as a LinkedIn guy.
Look at you.
What that is, John, is just talking to a lot of groups. I've spoken to hundreds of groups in the last year. That was my secret to getting my SEO where it is right now. So, way the cards fell. I love the way they fell.
I love it. That's great. That's great. Gregg Burkhalter, greggburkhalter.com, personal branding coach and expert, and the LinkedIn guy. Thanks for being with us.
Thank you again, John. I really enjoyed it. Hope to see you again soon.
I look forward to it. Folks, if you need help with the headaches of administrative tasks, bookkeeping, marketing, presentations, or workshops, well, go engage a smart and reliable Office Angel. They're not a temp agency or a placement firm. Office Angels matches your business support needs with angels who have the talent and experience necessary to help you maintain and grow your business on an ongoing or as-needed basis. It's your terms, it's your timeline. They lend a hand when needed and fly off when the job is finished. Find out more at officeangels.us or call Chief Executive Angel S.E. Escobedo at 770-442-9246. And a reminder, you can listen to this show every Tuesday morning live at 11:30 a.m. And if you miss any of our live shows, we are on all the major podcast platforms, iTunes, Stitcher, TuneIn, Spotify. There's probably 2 or 3 that just got released this morning. But we put this show out on all those major podcast apps. So search for North Fulton Business Radio on your favorite app. Find us there. Or you can go online at northfultonbusinessradio.com and listen to us from your computer or from your phone. You can follow us on Twitter or Facebook, North Fulton BRX. You can find us there as well. We'd love to have you connect there. So for my guest, Gregg Burkhalter, I'm John Ray. Join us next time here on North Fulton Business Radio.
Today, you're connected more than ever. Your friends, your family, your life. And banking is what you do on your time, anywhere you like. Renaissance understands how you bank, offering mobile banking services you need. At Renaissance, we also understand that sometimes you need to speak to real people with real answers. That's why Renaissance has more than 170 convenient locations throughout the South ready to serve you. Renaissance Bank, understanding you. Member FDIC.